In this video, I'm going to show you some examples of how to use Kotlin extension functions. So I'm gonna show you kind of a little bit about what they are, some examples of what they are, and then some little simple examples of how to use them. And then I'm going to look at some source code that I've written for larger projects. Just to give you a heads up, it's going to be the Powerful Android Apps course. So I'm going to look at some of the code that I did in there and some things I used Kotlin extension functions for in that much larger code base. I wanted to do that because I want to show you, practically speaking, in a larger project, how you might use them to optimize your code. And also, as another heads up, I had to re-record this intro, so for the rest of this video, you'll see me wearing a different shirt because in the old intro, I was calling them Kotlin utility functions, but they're actually Kotlin extension functions, so I just kind of mispronounced it while I was doing the original intro. Also, as another heads up before we watch the rest of this video, is I should let you know that this is actually a continuation of the previous video that I just published on my YouTube channel. You can find it just by going to my YouTube, going to videos. It's this material dialogues video right here. So this video is actually a continuation from the code that I wrote in that video. If you're just coming into this video and you want to know about Kotlin extension functions, don't worry about it. You don't need to have watched that previous video, but it definitely will help. Basically, we're just going to be improving on the code that I wrote in that video using Kotlin extension functions, and then we're going to look at a more complex example at another code base at the very end. So let's switch to my original video where I'll be wearing a different shirt. I'll see you in the demo. So first, for those of you who watched the previous video or haven't watched the previous video, let me just show you exactly what that previous video was about. So I have a couple buttons. If I click that one, it shows a success toast. There's an error toast. I have a success dialog. So success, you successfully did whatever thing you were doing. Error dialog, showing an error, something went wrong. And then are you sure dialog. Are you sure you want to do that? This can't be undone. If they click yes, they get a successful message. If they click cancel, they get a canceled message. So just a couple different examples of how to use dialogues using material dialogues. So that was the previous video that I was working on. Now let me bring up the source code for that since I haven't actually published that on YouTube yet. So here's the repository. There'll be a link in the description of this video. It's called UI Communication with MVI. The MVI part isn't done yet, but if you want to see the simple example using material dialogues, just click branch and go to simple material dialogues. That's the code that I'm going to be looking at for the start of this video, and now we're going to make updates to that code. So it's pretty simple. Let me just open Android Studio here and I'll kind of walk you through what we have. So there's just a single activity. As you saw from the demo, there's a layout named main activity and an activity that's called main activity. So in the layout, there's just 5 buttons. As you saw from the sample app here, we have 5 buttons that do different things. And then in the activity, we have a couple functions, one called setup demo, which is just attaching on-click listeners to all of those buttons. And then each of them calls a different function. Display toast, you successfully did that thing. Display toast, something went wrong. Display success dialog, which is obviously that success dialog, you successfully did that thing. Display error dialog, something went wrong. And then that are you sure dialog that says, are you sure you want to do that? If yes, then it says you successfully did the thing. If not, then canceled. Pretty straightforward. Nothing fancy. So if we scroll down, here are those functions that are being called inside of the on-click listeners. We have display toast for displaying the toast, obviously. Display success dialog for displaying that success dialog. I'll actually pull the app on the screen here. So toast is just that toast. Success dialog is this one, which is this function right here. Display error dialog is this one right here. Something went wrong. And then are you sure dialog is this one for showing, are you sure you want to do this? If yes, then you get a message. If no, then it says canceled. So now how can we improve this using Kotlin utility functions? Well, I'm not really sure there's a good way to explain Kotlin utility functions without actually doing it, so I'm just going to jump kind of right into the example. So what the objective here is going to be to kind of abstract out some of these functions that can be called inside of the activity into another file to improve organization. That's kind of generally, I think, the best way to explain what it's best for. Further abstraction to increase code readability. So let's go into the main package here, create a new Kotlin file, and this is going to be called view extensions. Now inside of view extensions, I want to cut and copy or cut and paste in all of these functions. So display toast, display success dialog, display error dialog, are you sure dialog, and the are you sure callback. So I'm going to highlight all of those, press Control X, and I'm going to paste those inside of view extensions, and get the imports. So now right away you see this error. It says this is not defined in this context, which is true. We've just created a totally new class that has no reference to a context. But what you can do with Kotlin is I can actually imply the context by writing activity dot and then display toast. So right away you see that that error goes away. So what that does is we've created a new Kotlin extension function on the activity object. So now any activity object can call this display toast function, and it has access to the context through this. So I want to do the exact same thing for all of the other functions. So just activity dot, activity dot, activity dot, and now all of these functions can be called inside of any activity, and they're kept away from the rest of the activity code to keep things nice and organized. So that's kind of the main purpose of Kotlin extension functions is organization and convenience. So now I'm going to go back to main activity, and you can see that all of those errors go away. So I can still call display toast, I can still call display success dialog, display error dialog. All of this stuff still works, even though it's not even actually inside of the activity itself. And that's because of these extension functions that we just created. So now if you're a little kind of unsure about Kotlin extension functions still, I'm going to create some other examples here so you can see just get another way of kind of looking at the same thing. So right here inside of our code, we have a bunch of buttons that we're applying on-click listeners to, and then we're calling different functions. So how can we kind of further abstract this out to make things more convenient? Now, what I'm about to do actually probably isn't really that convenient, but it's another way to show you a different example, another way to look at it. So hopefully if you're a little confused, this is going to help you, but probably this isn't actually making things more convenient. It's just providing a different way to look at things. So let's build this. So I'm going to create another function. It's going to be an extension function on the button class. So just unlike the other extension functions that we created where they're being applied to the activity class, this one's going to be only able to be applied to the button class. So anything that's a button. So button dot, I'll call it set toast message listener. It's going to take a message object that is nullable as input. So now inside of this function, this extension function, I have access to the button itself, and I can get access to the button by writing this. So you can see right there, if I write this, it says button. If I want to get access to the activity, I have to do this at main activity. In this case, I want access to the button. So I'm going to write this dot set onClick listener. So I'm setting onClick listener to whatever button this function was applied to, and now I want to display the toast. So in this case, I'll check to see if the message is null. If it's not null, then I'm going to call display toast and print that message. So that's it. That's going to be our new extension function on the button class. So now what I want to do here is replace these. So I'm going to write success toast, which is a button. I'm going to call set toast message listener. I can call it on that because it is a button. And now inside of here, I want to pass the message. So that's just going to be this right here. So I'm copying that and pasting that in there. So now I don't need this. I just essentially did the exact same thing that used to do in one line. So it's kind of a little bit more concise, but I wouldn't necessarily say this is more readable because this is a little confusing. But hopefully it just kind of shows you another way to look at things. So we did the success case. We can also do the error case. So error toast, I'll do set toast message listener, the same thing. And now I want to copy that message and paste that in. And now that will accomplish exactly the same thing as that old onClick listener. So basically what the takeaway here, what I want you to understand is that you can apply these Kotlin extension functions to anything. All you got to do is write the object or the thing that you're interested in applying some kind of function to, do dot, and then the function name. And then that function can be called on anything that is a type of that object. So for example, though, just to give you, just to kind of clarify things, suppose I had a text view. So value like text view equals some new text view. So I haven't added a text view to the layout, but I'm just like, this is not allowed. You can't do this, but I just want to show you that I can't call that same function. So this is a text view. Notice that I can't call set toast message listener. It doesn't let me set that to a text view. Whereas if I created a button, so if I was to create a new button equals, new button, and of course this is also going to give me a warning, but at least then I can do set toast, set toast message listener. So notice that it does allow me to set that because that is of type button. The text view cannot do it because the text view is not a button. So that's another couple examples of how to use Kotlin utility functions, or Kotlin extension functions, sorry. So that's going to be it for the kind of main example that I wanted to look at. Now we're going to look at some code that I have in one of my other courses where I actually practically used Kotlin utility functions to clean up the code and make it more organized. So we're going to go to my website, CodingWithMitch.com, head over to the Powerful Android Apps with Jetpack Architecture course. If it's not in the Coming Soon section at the time that you're watching this video, just scroll down and you'll see it right here, Powerful Android Apps with Jetpack Architecture. You can click this and it will take you to the course page. So now scroll down to the bottom of the description and you'll have a link to the GitHub repository. So Open API Android app. So now this is the code for that course. So I'm going to go into app, I'm going to go into source, go into main, go into Java, and just go into UI, main again, blog, and we're almost there. So now this is the blog section of the application, the blog feature of the application. Now I'm going to go into view model and you can take a look at some of these classes that we have here. So in this project, in the blog feature of the app, there is a ton of values. There's a ton of fields. We're using MVI architecture, so there's a ton of fields that we had to keep track of. So the view model got really big as I was building the project out. So right now it's not really that big, but that's because I've abstracted a lot of these things out of the view model class. So if we go to setters, for example, notice that the setters class doesn't have like a constructor, doesn't have anything like that. All it is a whole bunch of Kotlin utility functions or extension functions. These are all Kotlin extension functions, every single one of these. So you know it's a Kotlin extension function because it says blog view model dot and then some function name. So essentially what I did here is I took all of the setters out of the view model class and I built a setters class, so setters.kt up here in the URL you can see. And I just added a whole bunch of Kotlin extension functions that can be called within that view model, the blog view model. So this helps to keep things way more organized because you can essentially take like similar functions, similar methods, and package them away into another class where, so if you don't kind of get these master classes that are thousands of lines of code long. They're really hard to read and they're hard to figure out kind of what's similar, what's different. Yeah, basically similarities and differences between functions. So these are all setter methods, you know, set query, set blog list data, set blog post, set is author of blog post. They're all setters. Some of the other classes that we have here is like the pagination class. So inside here, we again have all Kotlin extension functions. They're being applied to the blog view model, but these are all functions that have to do with pagination. So pagination in the application. Again, taking a group of functions that have a similar purpose or one purpose and packaging them away where they can help avoid congestion of the main class. So all of these functions in here are related to pagination. The last one here is getters. So similar to the setters file, these are all just getters, you know, get filter, get order, get search query. They're all just getters that can be used inside the view model. So this is a great practical use case of how you can use Kotlin extension functions to clean up your code and help keep things more readable. You know, you can use them in your activities, in your view models, in your repositories, any class that can get really big and has a bunch of functions. Think about ways that you can take those similar functions and package them away into a file that just contains extension functions. And it will help clean up your code a lot, tremendously. It will improve readability. The rest of your team will thank you. The people reading your code will thank you. It's just a good way to structure things. It also kind of forces you to think in terms of what's similar and what isn't. So you'll think a little bit harder when you're naming your functions. At least I did when I was doing this. All right, so that is going to be it for this video. I don't really think there's a need to run the app and do the demo. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It does exactly the same thing as what I did in the previous video on my YouTube channel. So check that one out if you're interested. Let me know if you want to know more about Kotlin features, about different functions, maybe utility functions, lambdas. Basically go to the Kotlin website and just look and see what things you understand or don't understand, and leave a comment because I'm always looking for different things to do videos on. So I hope you liked the video. If you liked it, leave a comment, leave a like, and check out my Powerful Android Apps with Jetpack Architecture course. It's a really good one. If you missed that, just go to CodingWithMitch.com, if I can bring it up here. CodingWithMitch.com, go to the homepage, and check it out just by clicking here, reading the description, seeing what it's all about. There's a free demo too, so if you click on it, you go to course demo up here. That'll give you a free demo for everything that you would learn in the course. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.